Okay, so this one came out last summer when all the things started happening. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I chose to watch this show, and all it did was make me sadder. So trigger warning, mild spoiler warning. I'm not going to go all the way in because the title kind of gives its own self away. So let's talk about Japan Sinks 2020. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well rounded nerd. Today, I want to talk with you about Japan Sinks 2020. Now, I had to get out the notes for this one because there's a lot of characters and a lot of names, and I want to make sure I get it right and I don't get added in the comments for getting something wrong. So, I'm looking down at my notes. So, Japan Sinks is based on a disaster novel written by Komatsu Sakyo. Yeah, I think I said that right. Komatsu Sakyo. And it came out ages ago, like in 1973. Apologies if that's when you were born. No shade. I just meant ages in terms of animated media. So it came out long before this anime was ever conceived. And it actually was a 2-volume series, to my understanding. And as the title implies, Japan Sinks, it's about the islands of Japan, islands, that's plural for those of you who didn't major in geography, sinking into the ocean, just, and what happens to all of the people that are affected by that. So let's talk about it. The series actually dives right in to the action. The central event that is happening is that a series of earthquakes, a couple of eruptions, and apparently scientists in this world have been saying this for years. I don't know if this is real in real life. I hope it never happens. Japan's a beautiful country with lots of amazing people, but the islands of Japan start to sink into the ocean. And there are millions upon millions of people living there. Of course, are people who are Japanese by birth, but then there's a lot of immigration into Japan as well. So there's all kinds of people there, folks who might be there for a vacation, people visiting family, and the islands just start to sink. It's just natural disaster after natural disaster. Homes are being destroyed. Like, it's a mess. But I'm jumping ahead in the story. But that's the central thing that's going on to everyone. But you can't follow everyone in a story like this. You have to pick a family. And the family that's picked today is the Mutos. There's mom, dad, and then there are a sibling pair, Ayumu and Go. And, they're just a normal family. Dad works. He does some kind of construction rigging job, putting up big displays at arenas and stuff. Mom is a pretty successful businesswoman. She's been in the Philippines attending to some business. It's not a bad thing. For a little while, and she's on her way back home. She's on a plane. The kiddos are just normal kiddos. Ayumu is a bit of a track star, and she's actually in training to be on the next Japanese Olympic team. That's how good she is. She's out there, breaking records. Go sis, it's Women's History Month. Well, it won't be by the time this is published, but right now it is. And then her brother goes, just, a little Gen Zer. No, he's not even Gen Z. What's after Gen Z? Gen A, is that what they're called? He's just loving his video games and watching his TV and just normalcy. And the first few minutes of the series goes out of the way to impress on you the normalness of everyone, because suddenly all of these normal lives are interrupted. The ground starts to shake, things start falling over, people start seeking shelter, and instantly there's a lot of death. People are left hanging and stranded. People are crushed under things. It's bad. It's bad. Little Go's at home by himself, and the house starts shaking, and he's like, well, I'm going to take my little thing under the table and just let the house shake, because that's what you're trained to do in earthquakes. When I was a kid, we had earthquake drills. I live in Tennessee, and there is a fault line in Tennessee, so we had earthquake drills, which incidentally were the same as tornado drills, and those are two separate kinds of destruction. But the idea is you get under something sturdy so that things fall, you're protected. Well, that might protect you if a few bits of drywall fall, but if a whole building falls, it's not going to help you to be under the table. So just safety warning there. Um, but nobody, I mean, earthquakes happen in that part of the world. Tsunamis happen, earthquakes happen. And where there's a fault line, they can happen anywhere. I mean, they're right off the Mariana Trench. So they're used to it. Like where I'm from, we get a lot of tornadoes and thunderstorms, and they are destructive and it's terrible. But people are accustomed to the weather where they're from. They're like, oh, well, it's one of those things that happens. Glad it wasn't my day. That's really how you have to feel about it. Or if you live somewhere where it snows a lot, you're like, well, can't see the house today. Guess I'm not going anywhere. So this is where they are. And the first tremor comes through. They're like, oh, well, that sucked. Well, it's over. Let's go on back to business as usual. But all of the hell breaks loose. It's not an earthquake next time. There's got to be another word for this. This isn't an earthquake. This is world shaking, is what happens because all the things go wrong. Air traffic towers can't communicate with planes. Electricity's knocked out. Communications are knocked out. There's no safe water. It just, everything's collapsing. The train, everything collapses. And you have these 4 family members that we're following who kind of represent the rest of everyone in the country because everyone has a family. Everyone has someone who cares about them during tough times. It's a blessing to live in the age of modern technology where if something happens, I can find out what's going on with my loved ones relatively quickly. I can't imagine how people went through natural disasters, wars, conflicts, and the rest of it 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago, which isn't that long in terms of human history. And a telegraph was the best you could do. Or take it back a couple 100 years when you didn't even have that. Letters, if it got there, maybe. But at least they're in a world where they can try to get some communication to each other. And these 4 family members are showing us what everyone in Japan is going to have to try to do during this time. Preserve oneself, help who you can, and escape. And try not to be a jerk during the process because everyone is scared and losing something. And there's some very interesting political ideas that come up in this, but I'm not from Japan, obviously. So I can't really comment on those without doing some further study. But there is a lot of commentary on the structure of Japanese society, of pride in one's, birth nation and race, that type of things. And, it's interesting to observe that through another culture's eyes. That's where I'm going to leave that. Well, this family is completely separated and they're trying to find each other. The first one to make it to any kind of safety is dad, and dad's a little bit of an eccentric, but what good dad isn't? And he gets the idea to get to the highest hill in their neighborhood and put up these crazy dancing lights that he had in their front yard. And it works. Ayumu, who was at track practice, was in the locker room and she watched most of her track friends get crushed and die and actually left one of them who may have still been alive, but it was probably hopeless. Go was in the house by himself and mom was on a plane. But somehow they all just have this urge to reunite their family and get home. And that's what they do. They get home. They get to the top of this hill. And it is so beautiful to see this family happy to see each other and safe. Because at the same time that when your family is safe, another family is not. My people are okay. Someone else's people are not okay. That's just how this works. Death is part of the equation. So now the story flips from this national tragedy to following this group of people and how are they going to survive. Because not only do they need to live, they need to find a way to get off the island. How are they going to do that? A boat, plane, train, automobile, whatever you can do. Well, obviously, some nations are sending help. It's what you do. And Japan has barges standing by, but here comes some of that little political stuff. They're only designating certain people to be able to leave. You know, people who are exceptionally talented, the best grades in schools, the best families. I'm going to leave that right there because I don't have words. You know, only the best of the best of the best can make it. And then the rest of you better hope the United Nations comes for you. And Ayumu, being this star athlete who's supposed to be on the Olympic team and will represent Japan the best, she gets a ticket. But the rest of her family doesn't. She's not going to leave her family. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't leave my family either in those circumstances. If my whole family's going to die and I'm going to be alive, I can't deal with that. Who can deal with that if you're, you know, okay? And she opts to stay with her family, which turns out, you know, it's a good thing she did, because you never know when your last moments are going to be with someone. And I think that's a hard-hitting theme of this anime. I have not read the book, so I'm only talking about the anime. But this recurring theme of you don't know when your time is up keeps coming, because there are some very shocking and sudden deaths, and nobody has plot armor. Well, I guess a couple of characters do, our central brother and sister, but nobody else has plot armor. So, spoiler warning here, one of the first deaths that happens that's just real woo is their dad. Dad who got everyone back together, who was guiding them, you know, to get to higher ground and figuring out how to get food and stuff. They run across this sweet potato patch that's behind a gate, and there's a sign on it, but Dad didn't read the sign. He's like, we're going to have sweet potatoes for dinner. And he hops over, and Ayumu walks a little further down the gate, sees the sign. She's like, Dad. But it's that moment he realizes the trouble he's in. He has hopped into an old minefield left from World War II. And those mines are active basically forever. What an insidious weapon. Anyway, and you can guess what happens. We're not even 2 episodes into the show, and a central character is blown apart. So now the kids have their mom, and along the way they've picked up a couple of other travelers, and there are things that happen. Now, side note, there's a couple of episodes in the middle that I don't know why they're in there. I don't know enough about the culture there to interpret why those 2 episodes are in there. When you get to them, you'll know which 2 they are, but they just kind of take you completely out of the story. And I almost quit watching it at that point. But things do get back on track. So I'm just letting you know, when you get to those episodes, just be aware it's coming. So back to Ayumu and her family. Now mom has to take the place of dad in being their protector and provider. And we later on discover that the reason mom was in the Philippines was she was having a pacemaker or some kind of battery put on for her heart. I can't remember the medical term they used, but she needed hardware for her heart. And she got it done there because she happens to be Filipino, so she'll get the health care she needs there. So the children are half Japanese, half Filipino. That ends up mattering a lot. And the kids didn't know this before all this happened, because she would have just come back and lived a life. But now she doesn't have a way to charge these batteries, so mom's time is ticking too. And then it just keeps getting worse and worse. I mean, because the island is sinking. You know, you watch them struggle for food, try to get their phones to work, protect other people that are coming along with them. They encounter other survivors on the road who do not have good intentions and actually try to assault one of the young ladies with them, but mom ain't no fool, and mom takes them out. I mean, it gets real intense. And it's a picture of how people respond during hard times. Some people become way altruistic and they do everything for everyone, and they're determined to see all the people saved. And then there are others who take advantage. Both types of human exist. You don't know which human you are until you get into those circumstances. Well, obviously they want to be saved. And there comes an interesting point in the series where Go, who is our little connected all the time kid, you know, there's this YouTuber that he likes called Kite, who flies these big human-sized wind kites all over the world and gets these amazing shots and stuff. And they happen to run into him. I'm not going to tell you how, but Kite ends up being their savior. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much because this is one of those series that you really have to watch the whole thing and just be in awe of what's happening on the screen. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of sudden deaths. There's a lot of unexpected deaths. But isn't that how life works? No one knows when their time is up. It may not be as dramatic as a nationwide calamity of your country sinking into the ocean, but everyone has a time limit. And what are we doing with the time we have? Even if that time is hard, even if that time means struggle, are we doing the most to love the people around us? Tell them we love them, show them we love them. Watch it now. Hopefully you didn't watch it mid craziness going on in the world, because this series got way in there. And it's, if you're not in a good mood or you're not feeling the happy things, I wouldn't watch this one. Yeah, there's not a lot of media out there that has actually made me produce tears from the feels. I can count on one hand the times I have cried from a movie. Anne Frank, the one that came out, I guess, is about 20 years ago ish. It had Ben Kingsley in it as Pym. That one got me. Any kids dying is always going to get me. Let me think. When You Remember Me, it was a Fred Savage movie about a child who is in a long-term care facility because he's a quadriplegic. I forget what his illness was, but he ends up being horribly abused and dies there. That one got me. That one made me cry. It's just not a lot of stories that do it. This one did, because it hits to that family factor. Families being together. It's a hard one, but I recommend it. So I hope you enjoyed this light review and introduction to Japan Sinks 2020. Please give it a watch and recommend other anime to me. I'm always looking for another show. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we can talk about it down below.